Hello. I I was thinking about food. Yeah, well, I always think about food, really. But yeah, I was thinking about food, and I thought maybe it's good to share this with you because I was thinking about that food is actually um, food is not about food. So you might, you might work with food. You might even be a chef and deal and cook and prepare food every day. But eventually, what you make is not food. You make food, which is a material. You prepare the food. You might serve the food, but it's only food when it's being eaten by a human being. Well, maybe by a pig could be fun. Um, but I think it's very important difference to realize that what you are creating is maybe food, but what you are really creating is the experience that someone will have when they eat. And to realize that what you are actually making through using food is the experience that people have when they eat. This will change the way you look at what you do. It will change your perspective on your practice. And I think the cool thing about this is to realize that eventually what we make uh, might not be food, and food might actually just be an excuse for people to connect together or to address certain issues. Um, but what we are making is actually an experience. So we start to think about the verb of eating instead of just food, and this opens up a new way of thinking and a new world. And the cool thing is that when you actually start to think that what you create is the experience of eating, it means that what you create is a human experience. And the cool thing about humans is that they are full of emotions. Humans are full of emotions. And with food, you have the ability to influence or to enhance the emotion of a human being. So, what if you can create to actually touch someone's soul? What if you can create to make people feel emotional out of appreciation? Or what if you can create for people to see the world in new ways, but also feel the world in new ways? And it's a tricky thing because obviously, we're many different people and people have a lot of different emotions, and you don't want to trigger the wrong ones. So, what can you do? Are there any methods to um, make projects, to make food, to make experiences, um, or to make services that actually address someone on an emotional level? And I think it is a beautiful thing if you can do that. It's a beautiful thing if what you create is not just a generic product, but if what you create actually makes people feel alive, or make people feel connected to the world, or make people just tear up a little bit because they have a beautiful memory that they were forgotten about. And I think this is actually the power of food. This is what you can achieve with food. But it is not about the food, it is about the human experience with the food. So I thought to just share with you the project that I'm working on this year, which is my food and massage project. just to show you a little bit how this works, how I use it in my own practice, and also to show you that this way of looking at things, this way of working and making compositions in ways that actually address people's emotions are also to be used in other kinds of projects. So whether you are a chef, whether you are a food concept designer, a food stylist, or working in agriculture, I think these kind of principles, they can be used in many different ways, because eventually everything you are doing it for, with, and sometimes inside a human being. And this is a wonderful asset of working with food. So I'm doing a food massage salon project this year. It's a year-long project where I will be focusing on the merging of eating and massage, which is in itself already a kind of confusing mix. I'm going to explain why later on. And I did my first manifestation of that project in Berlin, in CO Berlin, which is a photography museum. And they had an exhibition about food, and I think that's a wonderful, exemplary experience of the world. It actually shows how we as humans are dealing with the world. So you have a photography museum with beautiful pictures of food, and people go there and they look at it. And that's what we do, especially nowadays. Just look at Instagram and hashtag food porn. We absorb and consume through our eyes food and porn. And both eating and having sex are things that are fully sensorial, and that could be really pleasurable when they're fully sensorial. But we have the tendency nowadays, and not only with food porn, but with many other things, to just walk around in our lives and look. We look at screens, we look at billboards, and our eyes are our dominant sense. And I do it too. I find myself just looking at screens and consuming things through my eyes. But it's also a shame, you know, we are fully sensorial. We have senses all over our bodies. And especially our mouth and our lips are so sensitive. But even when we eat, we just put the food inside, but we don't really touch our lips. Whereas actually our lips are super sensitive. We can actually feel when you have one hair or two hairs on your lips. You can actually count them with your lips, while your fingertips are not even able to do that. So there is something with touch and the lack of touch. There is something with food that can enables us to actually reconnect to our senses again. And what I really like to do is to find settings that are known to us. So we have a kind of known framework, like a massage salon or somewhere where you can have a beauty treatment. But then to incorporate a kind of unknown element, which is food and eating, and to play around with these elements that we do know, but not in this kind of setting. I think we can create kind of a new world where people can explore things that they know, but also are open up to explore them in new ways. Because if you put people in a restaurant setting and then start to work with food, they already have expectations about how a restaurant works. But when you put people in a massage salon setting, they will have different expectations. And then incorporating food can open them up much more to have an experience. So let me just show you how oh, sorry. Let me just find the screen share. And then you can see share, right? So, and I think I can also be in the corner here, so you can see me too. Yeah. I'm just going to share and talk you through this project so you have kind of an idea what this is about. And also to, let's see, yeah, this works. This is the first one I did in Berlin, but I'm going to make a few more of those. And every time I do them, I will find new iterations on how to make it better or how to explore different ways to deal with this. So for me, it's a kind of research project, but also a real fun experience actually to do. So it's called a food massage salon. It's called the treatment because it has capital EAT in the treatment. And when people arrive, they just get a ticket and they can get their therapy session, and they will be guided by a therapist who will take them to a hammock. And the hammock is here. It's a huge hammock. It's a double adult size hammock. So when you lie in there, you can be completely enveloped by the hammock. So you will be like rolled in like a little sausage. And before you get in there, you get your blindfolds on because we do not want to have your eyes to interfere with this experience. And you can see that every hammock has its own therapist, and the therapist is wearing headphones. And the therapist is wearing headphones and is listening to a story which is the exact same story as the participant is listening to as well, because the participant wears headphones as well. The story that you hear is a very important voice. It is actually the voice of your own tongue. And your own tongue will start speaking to you through your headphones. And to be honest, your tongue is, well, let's say, a little bit pissed off because you have been letting your eyesight dominate your senses. Whereas actually your tongue, your tongue has been with you from the beginning, your whole life. It has been inside. It has been there when you were tasting sand, when you put these plastic play blocks or Barbie dolls in your mouth, and it has been there with your first kiss. Your tongue has been there. It has supported you, but you kind of ignore it. Many times people eat mindlessly. So the tongue is inviting you to have this experience together, and he will guide you through this experience. And it's not only about the tongue, but it's about everything around your mouth to incorporate in this experience. So when you are being enveloped in this hammock and you listen to your own tongue, there is a hole in the hammock which is only there for your mouth. So your whole body is actually transformed into a single mouth. And people do find this really quite scary when they see this, which is obvious because you look just silly lying in the hammock. And that's actually, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, that it's a bit scary to do. It's actually a great asset for a project to also make it become incredibly valuable on an emotional level. Doing things that you find kind of scary, and then when they turn out really well, is a really powerful transformation inside of you to start to value and experience. But I'll get back to that later. So people are lying in the hammock, they are completely enveloped, the therapist is there, and the therapist will actually start rocking you gently. I'll just start with this one. And she will start stroking your whole body from the top of your toes completely to the tip of your head, and then start to focus on your face and on your mouth. So it's a very kind of specific experience. And she knows exactly what you are hearing So she knows exactly when to do what. So all the actions that you will feel with all your senses are completely in line with what you are listening to, what your tongue is telling you. So, well, as this is a beauty treatment, you will get a little yogurt treatment on your cheeks and on your lips, but also will go inside of your mouth. Then you will get some lip scrub that is made from sugar, and you can lick your lips. And then there will be a little brush with some rum on your tongue. And every time something will happen, here you can see a lady who just licked her lip from the lip scrub. And your tongue will guide you. So you won't be surprised by what happens, but you also don't really know what will happen. And what will happen is all really small and really precise, but also things that you didn't really think of doing. For example, you will get some apple cubes in your mouth while at the same time listening to a beat in your headphones. So you can make a kind of inner concert, chewing the apple cubes and listening to the sounds of the cubes and the sounds in your headphones. You will get a couple of tapioca pearls, and you have to count how many tapioca pearls there are in your mouth. And here you can see we made some specific tools for it as well. So the experience of how this actually will touch your face and how it will touch your mouth will be very specific. You can also see this little piping bag with tahini. The tahini will actually be placed here. It's so funny because this is a part of your mouth. It is a part of your mouth every day, but there are just a few people in the world that actually use this part of their mouth to put food on. So when you do that, this is not a world-shocking, complex thing. It's just something that you never thought of doing. And by having the experience, especially tahini is kind of sticky, and you just need a little bit of time to get it away from that place. It really makes you aware of all the possibilities of your mouth and your face and your tongue that you didn't really experience before. You also see a little marshmallow that we first use as a kind of skin massage kind of cotton ball, but eventually you put it in your mouth. And you also get some ice, which is kind of refreshing and unexpected. And then you get some orange flower water sprayed onto you. So you have also a sensation of scent and freshness. So it's a kind of whole experience. And I'm still changing, what's happening to really start to understand, how this process works and what we can do to give people the best experience. But I noticed that, it's very precise. It's just 20 minutes. So you need to find a way to get people to go into this state of meditative calmness. So they want to actually go with this experience. They want to have the experience, and they're not afraid anymore. So that is a big challenge. How can you make sure you get people from being kind of scared to go into an unknown space where they will look really stupid inside a hammock, to feeling completely open and acceptive to new experiences that they never had before in their life? And there are a few things that I noticed that work really well. I think the audio story is really important. Having your tongue speak to you is something that people really don't expect. Being blindfolded is a really good way to kind of shut out all the visual input that people actually process and make them think. And I think one of the very important things with things like this is make sure that you execute this really well. So the therapists, they are actually, they were fantastic women and girls that work in food innovation. So they are not therapists, but we have been training them. They have practiced before they started doing this to really make sure they radiate a conscious certainty of the thing that they're doing. These kind of things are very important. It's very important that the storyline of the tongue is guiding you through the experience and making sure you feel safe about what's going to happen with the things that are going to put into your mouth. But at the same time, you use humor and lightness so that people feel this is a fun experience. It's not necessarily a heavy, serious experience. So there are many ways that can help to make people go from being slightly scared to being completely comfortable. And finally, when people got out of the experience, there were quite a lot of people that were actually crying. And they were crying because they just felt like their heart has opened up. Their heart has been touched in ways that they didn't expect before. And it was actually interesting to see that it was mostly men in this experience that were crying, which for me was kind of unexpected. Maybe it was because it was kind of endearing, and to be touched in such a gentle way by another human being. Maybe this is something that's more normal for women. I don't know. I'm just generalizing here. But it is very interesting to see, the effect that something like this has. So some people were actually really emotional. Others were just super relaxed and really taking in all the sensations that they just had. Other people were just laughing. They thought it was so hilarious to be treated by their own tongue like that. And some people just needed to process a little bit what just happened to them. But I can say that for all people that were there, it was a really positive experience, like a once in a lifetime experience that they won't forget they had. And for me, that's a lot of fun to do, but it's also very scary because you never know, where's the balance between making something that is actually a beautiful, heart-opening experience and to make something that is just too scary and unpleasant. So this is something that I do in many of my projects. I know how to balance the choreography, how to balance all the various details to make sure that people have an experience that is positive and that is also touching them in a way. And I think, what you can filter out of these projects, this is an art project, but I can see that this way of approaching food or using food as a glue between people or as a way to make people understand something or as a way to actually link back to your own body. I see that there are certain methodologies, certain insights, certain practices that I use that make sure that all my projects work, that they never fail. They never fail to amaze people in that sense. But I also see that it's not necessarily something that you only use in an art setting. You can also use these kind of insights in a product setting, in a service setting, in a restaurant setting, in a commercial setting. It's mostly comes down to clever ways of thinking, because eventually what I did here was very simple. It's not high tech. It's not very complex. The food is very simple. The story is very simple. All my work is low tech. Audio devices are the most advanced objects that I use in my work. So I think sometimes we are looking for innovation in a very complex and high-tech way. And I think that's absolutely interesting. And I know that there are great examples of work that work like that. And this is also I want to talk about in the Food and Design Dive, and I want to show you these kind of examples. But I also want to take you to the very basic, the very human, and the very even simplistic ways of dealing with food that really connect to what humans understand. And I think these kind of things are many times overlooked, how simple it can actually be. Um, and how, easily this can also be used in other kinds of field when it works with food. And I think that's the cool thing about food. It can be very basic uh, and still world shaking. Yeah, so this is what I wanted to share with you today. Let's get back to the other screen. So this is just a little preview. We're going to go much deeper into food and design dive, not only on my own projects, but also showing other kinds of projects, other kinds of approaches. But I think there are a lot of principles and a very useful methodology that can be filtered out of these projects that you can use in your own practice, in your own life, and in your own projects to actually find ways to make more meaningful projects, to make more valuable projects, and by default, make more profitable projects. And I think that's the cool thing about understanding how to use these tactics, how to use these ways of approaching food, and to start understanding that food is not about food. As much as I like food, it is not about food. It's about the act of eating. And that in itself changes the way you start to think about your own practice. So that's it for today. If you have any questions about this project or about the food and design dive, you can drop me a mail or find me on Facebook and Instagram. Yeah, that's it. And I hope I see you another time soon. Bye.